Alright, let's talk about how a cooling vest made by a furry for furries and fursuiters ended up being used by the US military. Not even joking, full on, it happened. The cooling vest company within furry known as Easy Cooldown, you probably heard about it if you're a fursuiter and you own a vest by them. It's pretty much the go-to recommendation for if you're a fursuiter and you want a cooler fursuiting experience, one that isn't filled with heat strokes. It's always recommended to first off, have a fan with you when you're fursuiting, or the second option, get a cooling vest. And the go-to option that all furries recommend is Easy Cooldown vests. But supposedly, these cooling vests were so revolutionary and efficient that soldiers in the US military ended up using it. And to this day, supposedly, still use it. So let's talk about it. When I first heard about this news, I thought it was really cool. The funny part about it is this news happened like, oh, I don't know, 3 years ago. Wait, no, when was 2019? 5 years ago. So a bunch of people were sending me a couple of articles related to these cooling vests that were utilized or used in the US military, and so I wanted to check them out and kind of give a little bit of a breakdown as to how that happened today in a video, because why not? I'm gonna be honest, I'm kind of excited for this video. When I was told on stream that supposedly a cooling vest made by a furry was used in the US military, I needed to figure this out. Thank you, Shameless Man 9. What's your name on Twitch? I think it's Shameless Man 9. I just call them Shameless because they sometimes shamelessly message me with memes. A lot of furry businesses usually stick within furry, where a lot of what they sell or have to offer really appeals to the furry demographic. And very rarely do you have instances like merch companies that manage to branch out outside of furry and have a presence within just regular geek culture, because that's just kind of a part of what furry is at the end of the day. Nerds and geeks. It's a geek hobby, as I like to call it. But it's even more rare to see a company that originally bases itself within furry and makes a product specifically to help a certain demographic of furries, known as fursuiters, but then having that product grow in popularity to the point where it ends up being used by members of the US military. Along with many different jobs, careers, and hobbies out there, it's just really, really neat to see. Mainly because they gained their footing within furry over 10 years ago. I don't personally have a vest from them, and I would like one day. Also, for the record, I'm not sponsored by Easy Cooldown, even though I wouldn't be opposed to it. I'm just talking about something that I thought was really cool, figuratively and literally. But either way, our story starts with a company known as Easy Cooldown. The company was founded by an individual known as Easy Wolf. They do have an actual name, but for the sake of this video, I mean, it's a furry video at the end of the day, we're just using furry usernames. Which is funny because their Fursona came first, and they ended up naming their company and product after their Fursona, with Easy Wolf being the inspiration for Easy Cooldown Vest. It's a cute idea. I like it. I should do that one day. When I make my own inflatable fashion vest design, it'll just be Levi's floaty fashion vest. Okay, but that actually has a good ring to it. I'm gonna write that down and keep that for later. The company started back in 2013 and is based in the Netherlands. They were originally inspired by cooling vests that were used in the US military at the time. They saw these bulky cooling vests used in the US military by soldiers to keep cool in hot climates, or if they were working in like small machinery like a tank or something, they usually use these to keep their body temperatures low to avoid overheating or heat stroke. They saw these military vests being used and thought, well, I want to apply this to fursuiting. I feel like this would be a great idea to have underneath a fursuit to keep furries cool, because as we know, walking around in a rainbow carpet or just simply existing in one is really hot. It's a lot of work. In some ways, it's hot in one and hot in another, but we don't go over that way today. We do that later. Easy Wolf wanted to make something like this for himself and other fursuiters, and so the Easy Cooldown Vest was made after probably much trial and error, and the design ended up coming to be what it is today. Now, the way the Easy Cooldown Vest works is that it's just pretty much a polyester mesh material vest that has 4 compartments, 2 in the upper chest area and 2 in the back. And in those compartments, you place these little gel-like packs filled with PCM, I think that's what it is. Phase change material. I wrote that down because I knew I would forget it, but it's a cool sounding thing. But basically, chemicals that end up keeping all the cool temperature within itself to disperse throughout the rest of the body when it touches either the skin. And the way these cooling packs would be activated is you just throw them in the refrigerator or freezer, or throw them in like cold water, and then it would stay cool for, I believe, up to like 4 hours or so. Which I feel like is immensely feasible for fursuiters to have, especially knowing, you know, you're gonna probably be in a hotel room if you're traveling to and from cons. And so just throw the phase change material packets, or I guess PCM packets. Why do I overcomplicate things? Just throw the PCM packets into like the mini fridge there, and when you're ready to fursuit, just pull them out, throw them in the vest, and then throw on your fursuit over it. It sounds pretty simple, and I like that idea. Now, what does this have to do with the US military? Supposedly, they had received a call from a few US Navy soldiers who were looking to potentially purchase some of their vests for their service. Now, Easy Cooldown doesn't have any contract with the military for supplying any vests for them, and I guess it ended up being that a good few dozen US military soldiers ended up ordering these vests and using them on duty or on tour. And whether it was because they were furries who were in the military, or simply because they heard about this company through word of mouth, I think it's really cool that this furry company ended up getting to this point. And it just makes sense, because cooling vests in general are used not just, obviously, for fursuiters, they're used in many, many different jobs and fields. It's not like cooldown vests were invented for the furry fandom, it's been a thing long since. It's just neat to see it being innovated on by a furry, and it being applied to a fursuit, and specifically within the furry community, to then be adopted by many different companies and individuals, and even the US military for whatever usage it has. And I think it's especially neat because this company's success originally started from furry, like they debuted within the furry community at a furry convention. So I'd like to think that the furry community was a big contributing factor in this company getting its feet off the ground, and in order for this company to get his footing and to get started with what it was doing, which I think is just awesome. Awesome to know that the furry community and furries at large ended up contributing to the success of this company. And even still, you know, they make cooling vests for furries. That's one of their market things on their website. Like, you see the different cosplayers on their main website, and a few of them are furries or fursuiters. It's really neat. It's especially neat to see that even though they've grown outside of furry, they still stick to their guns and still stick close to the furry community. That's what I love too. This is just something neat that I wanted to gush about it and talk a little bit about. Again, I'm not sponsored by Easy Cooldown at all, although, again, wouldn't be opposed to that, but I don't really offer anything in the cosplay department. I'm just a YouTuber, that's it. Maybe I'll throw it underneath my life jacket when I'm, like, cosplaying around in my life jacket, because those are really, really hot. Look, you might think, oh yeah, you know, it must be really cool and lightweight. Nope, those fuckers build up so much heat between my body and the life jacket, it's crazy. So that's why, unironically, I might throw on a cooling vest underneath the life vest. Also, depending on the material inside, you could argue that technically those cooling vests are life jackets, because say if the PCM, or the phase change liquid material inside, is more dense or buoyant than water, it could technically float. And so, even technically from there, just a wee bit, these cooling vests could technically be life jackets. But not actually. Not at all. That requires like a Coast Guard certification, I think. And that's not what they're designed for. But I like to argue that because I'm just a jackass sometimes. But this is just another example that I wanted to show off where furries are really, really talented and really do deserve a lot more credit than we give them for. I mean, I do. This is part of my job after all. Look, I just like highlighting cool things at the end of the day. That's really it. There was this one case that I read in particular that I'm not going to go into detail about, but this furry ended up using that specific cooling vest while in the military as well. And so maybe others in their unit ended up seeing it, wanted to know what it was, and got their very own, whether they were furry or not. And that's just a thing to keep in mind as well. Like, word of mouth does a lot, especially within furry. And so that's why I think at least the big contributing factor at first to this company's growth ended up being the furry community. Just furries, you know, seeing a niche, seeing something that would be really cool. And also, we just naturally like supporting others in the community, especially other businesses. That's why I firmly believe that furries were a very big contributing factor into Easy Cooldown becoming what it is today. And I think that's really cool. And I think furries should keep doing that. So keep supporting furry businesses, because you never know what'll happen. And like I said before, this just goes to show how talented and creative furries are, which at the end of the day, you know, this is just people. You know, whether it's furries or not, you know, it's people. But I like to highlight it still because, you know, furries are still to some extent the punching bag online. People love ragging on furries, thinking they're dumb or not great or cringe or whatnot, but they end up making some of the coolest shit ever. And you gotta at least give them credit for that. And that's why I wanted to talk about this today. So big congrats to Easy Cooldown, even though this whole thing happened probably many years ago, probably before I was a furry in this case. So, yeah, but still, keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for supporting the furry community and still being awesome. So on that note, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this, be sure to let me know. This video totally didn't take me 2 hours to record. Yep. But yeah, that's about gonna do it for me. Have a wonderful night, take care, life stay jacket, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.